Bill from Philadelphia. It's a little chilly tonight. Is that mic okay now?
Yeah.
A little chilly tonight. Let me try this.
Yeah.
How's that, better?
Much better.
Yeah. Anyway, retired to Florida about 10 years ago and decided to do something interesting. So my wife and I volunteered at some nursing homes, some senior citizen homes. Although we're senior citizens, believe it or not. But I have all my hair, see? Anyway, we go to these homes and we really enjoy ourselves. We live in a senior community over 55. And I'll tell you, just experiencing some of these fantastic things that go on, you have to excuse me, I've been fighting a cold. Let me get my handkerchief. Oh my God. Give me that. Come to Florida and catch a cold. Anyway, I do a few magic tricks there, and then I tell some jokes. I only know 3 jokes, but when you go to a senior citizen home and everybody's over 70 and 80 and 90, you only have to tell 3 jokes every week. They laugh every time. They don't remember them. But one of the interesting things I do is I take a Hershey. Everybody knows Hershey makes chocolate and dark chocolate and white chocolate. And they don't know they also make an invisible chocolate. It's called an invisible chocolate kiss. And here it is right here. I think I have it in my pocket. Now watch. Pitch it in the bag. I'm going to give it to one of these children to throw up.
Hold on to this, honey. Just throw it in the air. Here you do. You throw it. Here you do. Throw it up. Got it.
See that?
Anyway, I've got some interesting things to tell you. When I first moved to Florida, I met a retired Philadelphia vice cop from Center City, Philly, and his name was Sam. And Sam was just an interesting character with a lot of stories. And here's one of the interesting things that happened. Sam said to me, Phil, he said, do you ever go out for breakfast? And I said, Sam, when I'm at work in Pennsylvania, I'm at my desk 5:15 in the morning. What time do you want to go out? He said, good. He says, I go out at 7 o'clock. So he picked me up at 7 o'clock. We lived in a little condo in Lake Worth. I was sitting on the porch, and he drove up in his Lincoln, and he picked me up, and we went to a place called Gourmet Deli. I think it was 2 eggs and toast and coffee and tomatoes and home fries for $1.89. We got done eating, and as we left, Sam's driving, and I said, Sam, I wonder if you could stop. There used to be Farmore drugstores then. I don't know if anybody remembers the Farmore drugstores. They've since gone out of business. I said, Sam, I wonder if you would stop at Farmore. I have to pick up something. And Sam said, having lived in Florida for 30-something years, he said, Farmore doesn't open until 8:30. Now, you remember, he picked me up at 7. We got out of there about 7:45. And I said, well, that's okay, Sam. If you drop me off at home, I'll come back later. And Santa said, well, it's no problem. Walgreens is open. They open. They're all night. I said, no, that's okay. I said, I'll take a ride with my wife later. And he is thinking that I don't want to, impose upon a senior citizen. Sam was well into his 80s then. And he said, let's go to Walgreens. They have everything that Farmore has, okay? So he pulls up in front of Walgreens. They were in a strip shopping center at the time at Lake Worth and Jog Road. And I get out. I walk in, and I come out empty-handed. And Sam was very stoic. He's driving, and he says, they didn't have what you wanted? I said, no, Sam, they didn't have what I wanted. And he looks at me, empty-handed. He says, do you mind me asking what Walgreens doesn't have that Farmore has? They're both drugstores, completely stocked. I said, Sam, they didn't have the film I left at Farmore 2 weeks ago. And that started a great relationship that we became very good friends and had a good relationship. Sam left Florida. He was very ill, went back to Philadelphia and passed on. But anyway, some of the things I do at the nursing home is tell a few jokes and a few tricks. I have to tell you this. I had an exterminating business in Pennsylvania for 47 years. When I volunteered at the nursing home, they gave me a schedule of things to talk about. And they wanted these people to be health conscious and talk about natural herbs and good eating and things like that. And they gave me a list of things to talk about. And one in particular that I'll never forget was the power of positive thinking. These are depressed people. They come out of their little apartment in the morning and they start their day off the same as when they finish their day off, kind of, not feeling great. And that week, I researched the power of positive thinking, Norman Vincent Peale. Thank God for computers. So I came to the classic nursing home in West Palm Beach, dressed with a shirt and tie, and they said, gee, why are you all dressed up? And I said, well, I'll let you know at 2 o'clock. That's when I went on. And 2 o'clock, I came out and I said, has anybody ever seen the movie Elmer Gantry with Burt Lancaster and Shirley Jones? A couple hands went up. And I said, has anybody ever been to a tent revival meeting? And I think one hand went up. And at the strike of 2, I just threw my arms open and went into an Elmer Gantry thing, telling them things like, and it's true, it relates to all of us. When you come out of your apartment tomorrow morning, even if you fell down and bumped your head and your neighbor says, how you doing? Don't tell them you fell down and you got hurt last night. They really don't give a darn. Everybody loves a winner. Tell them you're fine. And if you believe that, you're going to feel good for the entire day. And I just kept going for 1 hour. There was a man sitting in the middle aisle, much like this, in a wheelchair. And the wife came up to me and she said, it was really wonderful. We really enjoyed your sermon. And I said, looking at her, and I'm not a preacher, and I said, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. She says, I'd like you to meet my husband. And I said, where is he? And she says, he's down there in the wheelchair. And she took my hand and took me down. And I introduced myself, and he told me his name. I believe it was Herman. And as we're walking down, she says to me, he can walk. I said, well, why is he in a wheelchair? She says, he just doesn't have any desire to walk. I said, oh, okay. So Herman, I said, I would hope that maybe tomorrow morning you'll get up and walk. And she whispers to me, she says, touch his head. I said, well, she thought I'm a healer, So I don't know how to handle these older people. So I touched his head, and I'll be goddamn, that guy he got up and walked. Of course, 4 feet later, he fell down and banged his head on a chair. We had to call 911, but it was a great day. I felt like I did something good for somebody, I don't know. Anyway, a friend of mine just came back from Pahokee. I've driven through Pahokee on the way to the West Coast. Anybody here from Pahokee, so I don't insult anybody? And he told me that he went into a real rough bar. And he sat down, he had a couple drinks. He was driving with his wife, and he sat down and had a couple drinks. And the people around him were a little different than he's used to, but he enjoyed the difference of the people. And a guy comes in with an alligator under his arm, a 4-foot alligator. I mean, this is incredible, I said, are you kidding me? He says, no, he came in with a 4-foot alligator under his arm. And I said, well, what did the people do? They just looked at him. And he had a couple drinks, and then he announced, he said, does anybody want to bet $200 that I can have this alligator bite, and I'm going to use my genitals, and I'll be perfectly fine. And one guy says, I can't believe that. He says, here's $200. He put $200 on the counter, and he proceeded to drop his pants, and the alligator snapped like that, and nothing happened. And he won the $200 and zippered up, And he said, anybody else here want to invest $200? And a woman at the end of the bar said, she raised her hand, she says, I'm game. But wait, let me tell you what he did to the alligator before he was done. The alligator clamped down. He took a beer bottle off the counter, off the bar, and banged the alligator in the head. And the alligator released, and it was a great show. He says, anybody else want to bet $200? And a woman at the end of the bar kind of looked like she'd been through some hard times. She says, I'll take that bet. And she walked over to him. She says, but don't hit me in the head with a bottle of beer. You have to think that one out a little bit. I'm going to show you something that I learned when I was about 12 years old. And the mind reading powers have stayed with me a long time. And bear with me 1 second. I have here Sunday's paper, and I'll show it to somebody in the audience, so the Palm Beach Post. And let me just move out to somebody here. Sunday, Palm Beach Post, right?
Sunday, yeah.
So there's... So there's nothing prepared here. This is Palm Beach Post. And I'm going to cut a column out of this paper, and brought the scissors with me. Just any column right here, so nobody can say that I brought this in and it's fixed or something.
Wait, cutting? You're cutting that? Paper? Are you cutting that?
Now what I'm going to do is take this column and give it to somebody in the audience, and they're going to pick out a sentence or a paragraph on here, and I'm going to, in advance, write down what they're going to pick out. Do you think that's possible? Okay.
Yes.
Just let me take a look at it. This lady's, she's got eyes, and I know it's going to work with her. I can tell. We're connected already. I've got it. Okay, now I've written a sentence on here, and I'm going to have to borrow that tissue again, Sam. Napkin.
She took a napkin.
Here we go. Thank you. Okay. This is from the Palm Beach Post, okay? Okay, I'll tell you what. I've written something down there. Okay? Now here's how we're going to do it. Everybody can hear me without a microphone? Yeah. That is right from the Palm Beach Post, okay? You tell me when to stop. And wherever you tell me to stop, I'm going to project that to you, okay?
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, say stop.
Stop.
You've seen this trick before? Okay, we'll do it. Wait just a minute. Can you take your glasses off for a minute? Okay, that's a lot better. Oh, no. Okay, that's better. Okay, that's better. Okay, try it again.
Stop.
Okay.
Really awesome.
What does it say on there?
Wait.
Can you read it?
Wait. Wait.
Troops considerably fewer
Wait,
than
start. What's it say?
0000 troops, considerably fewer than our 28.
That's good enough. What does it say on here?
Same thing.
All right.
Let me repeat that. Where she told me to cut it said 1,000 troops considerably, and on and on and on. And on here I wrote 1,000 troops considerably.
It's moving. It's a video.
Are you crying? What are you crying about? But you're saying
Good scissors.
I have to tell you something interesting. I got married at 19. My wife was 18. And we had our first home in Levittown, Pennsylvania. We really weren't old enough to sign all the papers. But they didn't look at driver's licenses then, and we made it, you know. And incidentally, we'll be celebrating our 58th wedding anniversary next June. So, unlike the Kardashians, it did last. It did last. But when I go to the nursing home, I tell this little story, if you will, not a joke, but a little story. I was 20 years old when we moved into our first home, and my next door neighbor was from Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. Now, Tamaqua, Pennsylvania is the coal regions, upstate Pennsylvania, and he worked all his life in the coal mines. He was a Welshman. He had a big handlebar mustache, and he said to me, we didn't have any TGI Fridays then and play Duffy's, you know, where you could go to a bar and enjoy yourself. These were neighborhood bars. He said, Phil, he said, how about going and having a drink with me? I was 20. I had never sat in a bar in my life. I had drinks, but never in a bar. Sure, well then I'll go. So I'm glad I drove, because when we got to the bar, he said to the bartender, I'll have my usual. And the usual was the bartender put 5 shots down and a can of beer. And Weldon would take 1, 2, 3, and it lasted him most of the night, and he never paid for any drinks. And the bartender would say, well, what do you got now, Weldon? Or they called him Wild Bill because of that mustache. What do you got this evening? He says, I've got a good one for you, Tony. He says, watch this. He says, you got a piece of paper, Tony, like 8.5 by 11? And the bartender went back and got one. He says, Tony, he says, I'll tell you what I'll do. He says, I'll pay you double for those drinks if I fail to do this. Tony says, well, what is it? What is it? He said, I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to cut a hole in it, big enough to go over my head and my new friend here and neighbor, Phil. He says, well then, he says, if you can do that, he says, you can come back tomorrow night for 5 more drinks and a beer, or Boilermakers as they called them. And Weldon said, okay, Tony, now watch this. He took the piece of paper and he just started cutting like that. And while he was cutting, he would tell little stories and anecdotes. The one that comes to my mind is my next door neighbor. He was complaining a couple weeks ago that his wife was really, really moaning. She said he doesn't talk to her face to face. He's always pushing her around and just doesn't talk to her face to face, and he's pushing her around. I said, why is that? He says, well, she's in a wheelchair. He says, how else am I going to handle it, you know? Okay, anybody believe this? I'll show you. Bear with me. Is the bartender listening? Maybe I'll have a free drink tonight.
Do you need a drum roll?
I haven't done it in a while. I hope it works. Drum roll, do you have?
Well, actually, I don't. But I was just going to let everybody know that if they Google the Amazing Phil, they'll find out that you actually taught David Copperfield magic when he was a kid.
So there, say it can be done. And I never went back to the bar with Weldon because the following week he told me he went himself, and I saw him the next morning. It was a Sunday morning. He had been there Saturday night, and he didn't look too good. And he said, have you read the Sunday paper yet? And I said, no, I haven't read the paper yet. Why? He says, keep your eyes open. He says, I drove home myself last night, and I think I hit something. I said, what do you think it was? He says, I'm not sure. He says, do big dogs wear hats? And I said, no, I don't think